Alright, now let's get back to some other shows for the season. Next is Past the Monster Meat, Milady. I don't really know anybody who watched this show, but it looked kinda comfy. I assume it's a fantasy of some sorts. I really have no clue where it could be going with this, so let's find out.
This is definitely one of those times where I stuck with a show for way longer than I should have, hoping that it would give me something that it very clearly wasn't going to. I got 7 episodes into Past the Monster Meat, Milady. It's a cute rom-com about a noble lady who eats monsters and a noble of higher status who marries her because he likes the quirkiness, and she was not scared of him, the big brooding monster slaying prince. Well, not prince, but duke. Fine setup. Chemistry is fine between them, but everything's fine, and that's kind of the problem. Everything is fine. Not particularly good, but fine. And the more the more it is fine and not good, the harder it is to justify watching more episodes, because it's just, I'm kind of just sitting there zoning out to it at this point, and that's not really what I want to do with anime. I zone out to like VTuber compilations. I don't zone out to anime. It's just so fine. This is a light 6. Maybe a decent 6, but probably a light 6. Because the animation's also not very good. It waffles between pretty passable and barely passable. Like episodes 5 and 7 in particular had some real jank to them. And it has a lot of issues with the facial expressions being very wooden and like what's the word I'm looking for? Not quite as expressive as one would hope. I think I got tricked by a cute anime girl with red hair again. This happens all the time. I'm used to it. Yeah, I don't particularly bear any ill will towards this show, or even any like outright like I dislike this, but it's just not fully hooking me, and I kept going like, oh, well, I'll wait till this point to see if it hooks me. Okay, well, maybe I'll wait till this point. Okay, but what if I wait till this point, and I'm not gonna chase that anymore. I got so many other things I would rather do than watch a strong 5 to light 6 for however long I'm watching this. However long I've been watching this, whatever. I'm very fucking tired, and I still have to stay up more to reset, to make my sleep schedule a thing that I needed to do. But in any case, this show is very mediocre. It is okay, mostly, but I'm not looking for that.
Alright, Monster Meat, unfortunately coming off the list. Next is Dusk Beyond the End of the World. I saw a lot of people really hate this one, despite it getting a lot of what's the word, promotion. I really have no clue what it's about, so let's jump into it.
Okay, I know people dislike this show for like specific reasons about the comedy and stuff, but I didn't even get to that part because I actually watched the episode 0, which apparently is like totally unnecessary for the plot. I just based on what I read from the synopsis is it's just character setup, and to be fair, the character setup is decent. Like, I think they have pretty decent chemistry with each other. It's not mind-blowing, but it is above average in terms of what I see from seasonal anime. I have some critiques. On the less extreme end, stuff that's like, okay, so I had to look up screen caps of this just so I wasn't crazy. And for some reason, episode 0 has a very weird aspect ratio. By which I mean, and it's not, I don't think it's even accurate to say that it's an aspect ratio, because it's more of like how it's letterboxed, because the letterboxing is like convex, as in it's not just two black bars at the top and bottom of the screen, it's a black arc, like part of a circle that starts at the corner and goes to the under corner, and it's like a shallow curve for the letterboxing. Almost like it's supposed to be like a VR headset or something, but it's not a POV shot. That's just the aspect ratio they decided to use because technology, I guess, it feels pretentious. Which leads me to my biggest thing about this one is I think this show is trying this, at least this first episode, because apparently there's a hard reset after this episode 0 that goes in more of like a sci-fi apocalypse kind of direction. But this episode 0 is setting itself up to be very pro AI. And not like in the usual anime sense of like questioning how AI would fit into a modern society. It's just doing like the modern AI debate played straight. Now that's not exactly true, because the anime is specifically talking about AGI, artificial general intelligence. Whereas a lot of the debate about AI right now is about generative AI, which is like the image stuff and the video stuff and stuff like that. But the two are kind of permanently linked together, especially by the hucksters who are trying to push generative AI. The people who are saying that this is the world-changing technology. To be fair, it is, but not in the way that they think it is, because it is. I've never mentioned it on this channel, I think, but if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I am extremely anti-generative AI. I am full-on against it. I think it is, unless you're applying it to like the medical field or physics or something like that, and then it's looked over again by humans to make sure that it's right. Outside of that stuff, I think I don't think generative AI has any positive use at all. And this show talks the way that people promote generative AI talk. Like, not in the most obvious ways, but in subtle ways of like, oh, the world just doesn't understand what an important technology this is. And also, it just gets the power dynamic of the people making AI completely fucking wrong. I don't know when the source material for this was written. I'm tempted to just walk over to my computer right now and check. I am actually going to do that and do this live. I don't think I've ever actually done this during the seasonal wrap-up show where I just go to the computer live and see. Oh, this is. Oh no. Oh, this is an original work, which is what PA Works normally does. Oh no. Oh, no. That means this was written recently, like within the past 2 years, probably. Or at maybe 3 years. In any case, shame on you, PA Works. Shame on you. I'm not saying that PA Works is pro AI or anything. I don't know anything about any of the staff that work there. However, this is not your best foot forward. Also, they are getting the power, like I was saying, they were getting the power dynamic of this entirely wrong because they're pushing this as like this lone super genius teenager who came up with all the AI stuff, and the whole world is just against her putting this out for moral and ethical reasons. Do you see where I'm getting the weird AI scammer vibe from this? Like, they even have like the fucking Pope come out and say that there are religious and ethical cautions that should be had against putting AGI in an android. That's like the big thing. And her own AI says that there's like an 82% chance that the world will just shut down her research, which is just not what's happened. And anyone could have told you that that was not what was going to happen. Maybe the writer was being overly optimistic in regards to how the world would react to AI, or at least the people in power would react to AI, because that is very clearly not what's happening with the world. Most of the people in power are being manipulated by the Sam Altman types and the Jensen Huang types who are pushing AI so that they can make a massive fucking profit. And all of the safeguards and rails are being torn asunder to push that. And that's, I feel like the people who follow me will agree that that's a bad thing. And I don't think this show thinks that that's a bad thing. I think this show wants more unrestrained research. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's setting up for an apocalypse scenario caused by AI. Maybe I'm just completely misinterpreting what it's throwing down. But if I'm misinterpreting it that badly, then I have serious questions about how it's being written. And I really don't care to find out either way because I'm not having a good time. Fuck it.
Oh, that was not very good. Dusk Beyond the End of the World. Gone. I don't want to deal with AI shit right now. I just don't. Alright, next. My gift level 9,999 unlimited gacha. Boy, I hate this title. Maybe I'll hate the anime less. Let's find out.
Oh my god, the writing is terrible in this. It's so fucking immensely on the nose, even by anime standards, of like this world was created with 9 races, but everyone shits on the human because the humans suck. See, it's doing a racism. But the humans are the ones being discriminated against this time. Ooh, bet you didn't see that coming. And then it hits you with the, hey, we're the Concord of Tribes, and we're doing a rainbow coalition. But then I remembered that the first episode is titled Betrayal and Salvation. So I looked at the little thumbnail as I skimmed across the whatever you call that, the play timeline or whatever, and our little can't poor little innocent human boy gets betrayed at some point. I don't know why, but who gives a fuck? This character is so boring. And also incredibly mid animation. This is like, the character designs remind me a lot of dungeon. Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? I forget what the abbreviation. Does that have an abbreviation? It should have an abbreviation at this point. But the character designs remind me of that, but worse. And it's just so brown and gray and gross, and it all sucks.
Nope, did not hate the anime less. In fact, I hated it kind of more. Taking that off the list. Alright, next is Sanda. This one, I've been looking forward to for a while just because it seems really fucking wild and insane. It's a Science Saru adaptation of a Paku Itagaki manga. It's the author of Beastars. Apparently there is a lot of specific coming of age stuff in it. Fuck it, we ball.
Wow, that was a lot. That was a whole lot. Just finished up Sanda. This is a anime adaptation of a Paku Itagaki manga, author of Beastars. And yeah, it's just as thematically rich as that show. Honestly, I think I might like this one more. Although, full disclosure, I really liked the first season of Beastars, and the second season was like a little bit for me. But we're not talking about Beastars. We're talking about Sanda, this very weird fantasy? Not necessarily fantasy. Action mystery show where the main character is a descendant of Santa Claus, and when he wears red, or more often when his clothes get stained with blood, he can turn into Santa, who is this giant buff dude that is essentially immortal. Very weird show. That is definitely very theme forward. Like if we're talking about like what a show focuses on, if we're talking about like plot centric or character centric or theme centric, this one's definitely theme centric. This one has a lot of ideas that it wants to talk about. Not necessarily 100% clear on them, but more so just sort of manifesting the ideas. Because Santa is a very... I'm honestly not sure why I haven't seen this theme more. Maybe it's because a lot of Christmas media is like all ages stuff, so it can't really get into heavier themes, I guess. But like the theme of like belief in Santa Claus by children is like very central to this show, not only in the sense of that's where Santa gets his power from, but also in the sense of like, okay, this is such a very complicated show to explain the premise of, because the Santa part is only part of it. The other part of it is it's another Japan declining birth rate show, and so it's basically, I think they say like they're down to like 50,000 children in Japan. And so like they're all sent off to these academies where their lives are like basically dictated for them. And this academy in particular that they're at, I forgot what the name of it is. It's like a trauma-free curriculum where they're essentially state-mandated education, state-mandated marriage, or arranged marriage, and absolute avoidance of anything that could cause them trauma that would turn them into shitty adults. And also there's these weird sci-fi elements about them that where they essentially don't have to sleep anymore, which does not get nearly as much focus as it should in terms of the psychological effects of not sleeping. They just sort of hand wave it with something vaccines and whatever. So like, fine, because the thematic element of it is so much more, is so interesting, of the like kids do their growing overnight and stuff, so on and so forth, growing pains, all that thing. And how do I even talk about this show? Like, it's so on the nose, but also so very complex and like almost not non-verbal, but like non-direct about what it's trying to say. It's like both at the same time. Because it's like, and there are ideas that are very interesting in the sense of like, it's basically like the adults are saying like, we need to salvage our country by micromanaging the entirety of our children's childhoods, but also at the same time they recognize that there is nothing that they can do to save the country, and so they're just prolonging the inevitable, I guess. And then you have Santa as like a symbol of hope, almost in a My Hero kind of sense, like this symbol of, like, whereas All Might was the symbol of peace, we have Santa as like Santa is a mythological figure for children to believe in, because it's important for children to believe in something. It's important for them to have hope for the future. And so the headmaster of this school is doing everything he can to stomp out Santa, because he doesn't want children to have hope. He just wants them to fall in line and do as they're saying. So we have this very purposefully contradictory setup where the adults are saying the children are the future, but also children do exactly what we fucking tell you, because you should not have hope for the future or anything, but also you are our saving grace, and this is a world where children can just murder adults, and the only consequence they have is they get sent to like a delinquent classroom. It's not illegal for children to kill adults because children are so precious, but also this manifests this idea of the older generations having this intense fear of younger generations that they see as out of control. But the reason that they are out of control is because of what adults are doing to them on both extremes of the spectrum of yes, coddling them too much makes them ungovernable, but also micromanaging them too much makes them these psychotic messes. We need a middle ground where we are stern with children, but also we allow them the freedom to do things and learn things. And then there's this idea of like the trauma-free curriculum, where it becomes very plainly obvious that it is impossible to create a trauma-free childhood, because things are going to happen anyway, and
the harder you try to shield children from the horrors of the world, or even just like the everyday mundane tragedies, the harder you try to shield them from that, the more psychotic they become and the less they are able to deal with trauma as they grow older. And we have the headmaster character, who is this 92-year-old dude who looks like he's in his 20s, and only his hands show the signs of aging. He has completely replaced his whole body with younger parts and artificial parts because he hates the idea of aging. But he also shows this absolute disdain for children in a lot of ways, despite how much he hypes them up as being important. And he just sees them as not good. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Just unable to do anything without adult guidance. And just see, this show is so much to talk about. I would need to like watch this through again with a fucking notepad and take notes on shit to really get all of my ideas straight about this and what exactly it's trying to do. I've only talked about one character in this show since I started talking about the ideas of this, and he's not even the central character. He's the central antagonist. I haven't even gotten to the other side of this with all the child characters who are trying to figure out how the fuck they're supposed to live their lives, let alone Sanda, who is able to turn into Santa and back and forth and has to balance being a child and being an adult. And also Santa is supposed to interact with children in a certain way that contradicts his child brain, and those two personalities going head to head in his mind and creating this massive identity crisis. It's just there's so much here. There's just so much here. I can't even Fuyumura is such an interesting character in how she is on the one hand completely batshit insane, but also just like the perfect encapsulation of a child in how unrestrained and free she is, and how she is just trying to make things feel right after her friend goes missing, like the only friend she was ever able to open up to. So much for the trauma-free curriculum, which is how Santa manifests in the first place, because she stabs Sanda to get Santa to come out. And this idea, like the idea of Santa being also not only something for children to believe in, but also a being who is there to grant the wishes of children, and how that manifests in the different aspects of this plot. My brain hurts from thinking about this. Or maybe it's all the training I've been doing for the past few days in class. It's been a very, very long week. And the weeks are not getting shorter anytime soon. Except for the upcoming week, because I finished this on I think it's technically the 21st now. It was the 20th less than an hour ago, but now it's the 21st. So just shortly before Christmas, I was able to finish this show. So perfect timing on that. There is just so much to dissect about this show. But I'm almost a little afraid to go back and dissect it, because it could very well just turn out to be a bunch of contradictions, but also that don't line up super well. But also I think the contradictions are kind of the point, and that it's just this big, gigantic ball of very complicated emotions that
children turning into teenagers, turning into adults have to deal with. I haven't even gotten to all of the romance stuff in this because there are several romance subplots in this related to growing up and teenage angst and when the wanting to grow up versus wanting to stay a child. It's good. It's so fascinating to see. I am just captivated by this. And it looks so fucking cool. Like, this is... Like, I don't know if this is a hot take, but, like, this might even be a better production than Beastars. I know they're not comparable in any way other than same author, but, like, this was a goddamn good production. By Science Saru, as a matter of fact. So while they were making the second season of Dan Dan last season, they were prepping to make this, and damn, they knocked it out of the park, which I wasn't expecting from this director because it's the guy who did Yurei Deko, which was just not good. But I guess if you put good source material in front of him, he can really knock it out of the park. The character designs adapting Itagaki's style are just so damn good and iconic. I've mentioned, this is the third time now in very close proximity that I've mentioned anime characters that are described as like ugly or unappealing and actually looking sort of ugly or unappealing or having like non-conventional body types, and Fuyumura is that to a T. This tall, lanky girl that very much does not like how she looks, and in terms of like typical anime attractiveness, yeah, I get it. They actually nailed that part of it. The action scenes are really goddamn good. There's so many rotating, like, 2D backgrounds. Like, there's not a lot of shortcuts taken in this with the action scenes. It is a lot of moving sets, a lot of moving, the frame moving all over the place, and it rarely ever looks anything less than good or great. The action has a ton of punch to it. Super weighty. Oh, before I forget, the soundtrack is so fucking fun for this. The like main transformation theme, I guess, is so fun with that. The vocal track to it is just so hype and weird and exhilarating. Also, there is this one of the main track, more like ominous tracks, is like it takes the opening motif of Joy to the World but puts it in like a minor key. I don't know if it's necessarily minor or it might be a different it's definitely not major, but it's another key that sounds so much more menacing, and it's just so weird and cool. The color design is fucking fantastic. When it wants to be really like depressing and heavy, it pulls back on the colors a lot to give it this very shallow grayness to reflect sort of the emptiness of what some of the characters are feeling. But at the same, and in other scenes, it can just be so full of life with all these very fun reds and greens and stuff. It's just so cool. This is such a goddamn good show. I really like it. Yeah, this is highly recommended show. you should check it out.
I forgot to mention the one thing that I will say is going against this show is that it is nowhere close to being wrapped up into, like, the manga's finished, but the anime is nowhere near like a good stopping point. Like, it has a good conclusion if there is more if there is more anime coming, but it is definitely there's definitely a lot of loose ends to be tied up. But in any case, Sanda is complete, and we're going way up to the near the top of the list here, and we're gonna put you in a number 5 spot for now, with a light 9. A lot of shows in the fall season coming in clutch right at the very end. Good shit. All right, next is my best friend's little sister has it in for me. Some kind of light novel rom-com, I assume. I have not seen anybody talk about this show. Let's give it a shot.
Obnoxious. Fucking obnoxious. So fucking obnoxious. It's Nagatoro, but worse. Because, like, A, the dialogue is even more on the nose. And B, the main guy isn't like a pathetic, sniveling little loser like Senpai is in Nagatoro. He's just like a dude. But the girl is still trying to get a rise out of him, even though it's not happening. So, like, I don't even understand why she's bullying him, other than the pretentious monologue at the beginning of the show about how people bully the people that they have a crush on. I was willing to write that one off because, like, it's clear that it's one of those things that pretentious light novel rom-coms do, where they start with a thesis where the main character has a thesis about the world that gets proven wrong eventually over the course of the series. So, as rote and trite as that is, I was willing to write it off if it was actually going to work, but it just doesn't fucking work. It's so fucking obnoxious, and it doesn't even, like, make sense, really. The one thing I will give this show is that the fan service is pretty decent. The best friend's little sister is in fact hot. Would smash. There was like a POV shot, like, from her angle down her titties, and I'm like, A+, man. Yeah. Other than that, shit.
Yeah, that's gonna be a no from me, dog. This one's coming off the list. All right. Musume, Cinderella Gray, Core 2. First half of this of Cinderella Gray was really damn good. Super hyped to just jump into it. Let's just do it. Let's just jump into it. More horse girls. Let's fucking go.
All right. And that wraps up the second half of this story. Just finished up season part 2, or second core of Musume Cinderella Gray. Overall, I think, unfortunately, it's just a very slight dip compared to the first season for a variety of factors. A lot of them are nitpicks, but there are a lot of nitpicks that add up to just a slight decrease in enjoyment. So I guess, refer back to my review of the first core back in the spring season? Yeah, it should be spring season of this year. For all my thoughts on that. But for this core specifically, we got a lot more of the Ogre Cap Tamamo Cross rivalry, which by far is the best part of this season, as is the case with most Uma Musume entries. The rivalry is usually the best part. Teo and McQueen, Kita-san and Satono, Jungle Pocket and Agnes, and now we have Oguri and Tamamo. Easily the best part of this season, and it's, I would say, in terms of rivalries that are just the pure competitiveness of the rivalry, I think it is definitely up there. I don't know if it's the number one for this franchise so far, but it's certainly up there. I really bought into the competitive spirit amongst them and how much they sort of rely on each other for motivation. That is definitely one of the best parts of this season. Although there were unfortunately a lot of things that kind of distracted from that, especially in the first half of this part. Like the whole Japan Cup arc felt a little too, what's the word? Not bloated, but busy. There was a lot of stuff going on that didn't get all of the attention it needed due to the massive influx in new characters who were getting significant amounts of screen time and significant amounts of speaking roles and motivations and stuff like that. Like with Tony Bianca being the big European, the Emperor of Europe or whatever. We had two different Americans with Obey Your Master and Michelle something. Had someone from New Zealand, someone from Britain. Just a lot. And all of them have very unique goals and motivations and stuff and personalities, which is really cool, but there's not a lot of space for them to move around, because on top of that you also have Tama and Oguri in there. You have there was a little bit of, I think her name is Yaino, I think. The martial arts one. I think that her name's Yaino. And then I believe they introduced Super Creek somewhere in there as well. Her stuff is definitely a little bit. Well, actually, no. I think her stuff is around like episode 4. I'm already lost track of where it is, but I think most of her stuff is in the back half, so it's not as bad. But you can see where I'm going. They introduce a lot in not the first 5 episodes, but episodes like 2 through 5. So like a 4 episode block, because the first episode kind of takes a step back to do a little side story with Oguri's old crew, with Fujimasa March and all of them, which was cool. It was a nice little detour. I have no complaints about that. It's just the Japan Cup arc in particular just felt a little bloated. Not bad. There's nothing wrong with it in any way. It's just a little too much going on at times. So it ended up just not having quite as much focus as it could have, especially compared to the first core of this. That's sort of I guess just a general thing, is the lack of focus. Second half definitely started to streamline itself a little bit better, with 4 episodes like 6 to 9 being the culmination of the rivalry between Tama and Oguri, and just show the final push to get Ogre into the zone and unlock her true potential and all of that. Very good stuff there. Sorry. It's been a while since I've been yawning in the middle of recordings. I'm trying to remember some of the other nitpicks that I had. I guess that's the main one. I don't know. It just felt just a series of very minor details and stuff that added up to it being just not quite as impacting as the first core. One of the things I guess is not necessarily something that this core does, but more so something that this core doesn't do is the lack of surprise, I guess. The lack of interesting twists and stuff. Like, in particular, I'm thinking about the rug pull in, like, halfway through the first core, where it's like, it makes you think that Ogre's in the derby, but she's not. And it's just sort of a cinematic, misdirection. There weren't really any moments like that in this season. This season was just very straightforward and fun. I guess you could count the Obey Your Master twist as roughly in the same category, but it's still not the same and nowhere near the same intensity. And we already kind of have motivations like established for everyone, so there's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot being added this season. It's more so just conclusions to stuff that we already have, which is good. I'm not saying that anything about this is bad. There is less than 1% of this stuff is stuff that I'm not a fan of, aside from the lack of focus in the first half. It's just doesn't have as much impact. Even Ogre's big victory at Arimekinen in episode 9. It was big. I felt it, but I was hoping I would feel a little more. Even some of the stuff in season 3, which I think was another slightly lower point for the franchise, had more impact for me than that, which was a little disappointing, I guess. I don't know what it is, really. And maybe it's just the way I'm watching it, because I'm watching it on a computer now instead of on my TV. Who knows? It just didn't... Or maybe it's just it played all its tricks in the first season, and now it's just going. I find myself struggling to talk about stuff with this season because it's just... it's more of the first season that was good, but also just, not a lot of the more wowing moments of the first season. Oh, there was one nitpick that I do have about it visually, because it just, for the most part, it just looks like season 1 looked. It has a bit... Its colors are a bit washed out at times, but not necessarily in a bad way. Although it can get a little bit... too gray at times, but that's not a huge thing. My one, notable specific detail that I would like to critique is, specifically in episode 5, when we have this final spurt between Tama Macross and Obey Your Master at the Japan Cup, and the effects animation for their zones. That, I think, looked a little jarring. It looked out of place. It did not blend. The specific colors that they chose for that specifically Obey Your Masters, like effects animation, I don't think matched well with the overall color composition of the shots that they were in. It's like moments like that. It's like tiny things like that that just add up over the course of this season to just be ever so slightly worse. I think the new girl has potential at the end of the season, Inari 1. I think she's definitely going to be an interesting character. I would definitely like to see more from Super Creek. She's got an interesting vibe to her. Dicta Striker's big moment in episodes 8 and 9 were really fun. The show's still hype as hell. Super easy to binge. Did not feel bored at all at any point watching this. Yeah, it's more of the first season. It's still got like the tiny little bits of humor to break up the more dramatic moments. I did like the introduction of like rough play in the Japan Cup with all of the foreign horses horse girls being more rough on the track, and rough with the other racers. That was an interesting little twist. I did like that. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to say about this one. It's still very good, just ever so slightly disappointing. Just by a fraction of a hair. Not enough for it to super matter, but it is what it is.
Alright, Uma Musume Cinderella Gray Core 2 is complete. And we're just going to combine it with this one here, change the color to reflect the fall season. But instead of sitting at a light 9, unfortunately it's getting slightly downgraded to a strong 8. Little bit unfortunate, but yeah, I made my complaints clear. It's nothing too horrible, but in fact there's nothing horrible at all about it. It's just a very, very slight step down.